A few days ago, the football world was caught off guard when the news broke that the Raiders had released linebacker Germaine Pratt. No trade, no conditions, just a clean, sudden cut. For a team that could have easily fetched a late-round pick for him, the move raised eyebrows across the league. It wasn't just about losing a player, it was about the message this decision sent. Something behind the scenes had clearly shifted, and the ripple effect was already taking shape. Within hours, the Raiders made two more moves that began to paint a clearer picture. They signed linebacker John Ratigan to the active roster and added Jamon Davis to the practice squad. And when you dig into the details, it becomes obvious this wasn't a random roster shuffle. But before we go deeper into what these moves mean, one quiet transaction told us everything about how the Raiders are thinking right now. To make room on the practice squad, the team released quarterback Jeff Driscoll. At first glance, it seems minor. Driscoll isn't exactly a household name, but symbolically that release spoke volumes. It meant one thing: the Raiders aren't planning to bench Geno Smith anytime soon. With only two quarterbacks on the depth chart, Geno and Kenny Pickett, this is the team's way of saying, we're riding with our guy. There's no backup plan, no secret competition brewing in practice. Aiden O'Connell's return isn't even confirmed yet, which makes the decision even bolder. It's Geno's team, for better or worse. Sure, fans and analysts have been calling for change, trade rumors, speculative scenarios, what-if lists featuring veteran names like Russell Wilson. But when you strip away the noise, none of those options make real sense. Wilson's own team benched him and moved forward without hesitation. The rookie behind him is already starting, and even Shedeur Sanders, who was taken later in the draft, is still finding his footing. None of them offer stability or upside for the Raiders right now. That's why Carroll is doubling down. He's not chasing desperation trades or short-term fixes. Instead, he's reinforcing the structure around his quarterback. And that's where the signing of Jamon Davis becomes crucial. This wasn't just a depth addition. This was a statement. Davis, a former first-round pick out of Kentucky in 2021, is only 26 years old and still carries the athletic profile of a star waiting for the right system. Standing at 6'3", weighing 240 pounds and clocking in at a 4.4-second 40-yard dash, Davis is built for speed, power, and versatility. He's a natural fit for Pete Carroll's defensive vision, a cover 3 system that relies on smart, explosive linebackers who can read and react without overthinking assignments. This might finally be the environment where Davis can unleash his full potential. In Washington, Davis never quite fit. His rookie flashes were overshadowed by coaching turnover and a defensive scheme that began to blur traditional linebacker roles. When Dan Quinn arrived, he favored hybrid safeties over true linebackers, forcing Davis into awkward alignments that limited what he does best: play fast and physical. By the 5th week of the 2024 season, Washington moved on. A brief stint in Minnesota followed, where Davis showed glimpses of what made him a first-rounder, but the Vikings didn't re-sign him. Now in Vegas, under Carroll, he finally has a coach who values his traits and knows how to use them. When you watch Davis on film, it's easy to see the raw potential. He's quick enough to stick with tight ends like Jalen Waddle or running backs like Bijan Robinson in coverage, and strong enough to shed blocks and collapse the pocket off the edge. Over his career, he's generated over 20 pressures, flashing both speed and instinct. That's exactly what the Raiders need: a linebacker who can cover space and attack downhill. With Germaine Pratt's departure, Davis steps into a role that perfectly matches his skill set. Unlike Pratt, who was more of a traditional stacked linebacker uncomfortable on the line, Davis thrives in chaos. He's explosive off the snap and can double as a pass rusher when the situation calls for it. The addition of John Ratigan adds another layer. He's not a flashy name, but Carroll knows him well from their time together in Seattle. Ratigan is the kind of player who brings stability, reliable, tough, and disciplined. He understands Carroll's defensive philosophy and fits the locker room culture the coach is trying to rebuild. It's no coincidence that Carroll brought in someone familiar just as he removed a player like Pratt, who reportedly clashed with coaches and teammates. According to insiders, Pratt's release wasn't purely about performance. It was about attitude. Sources close to the team say he pushed back against coaching adjustments, voicing frustration over being asked to play out of position. That kind of tension might work in some locker rooms, but not in Carroll's. He wants players who buy in, even when the plan changes. That's what makes these moves so revealing. They aren't just about talent, they're about alignment, mentality, and identity. Pete Carroll is shaping this Raiders team in his image: fast, physical, united. And for the first time, It feels like the pieces are starting to fit. On offense, Geno Smith remains the lightning rod for criticism. He's struggled, yes, but not every mistake has been his fault. 6 of his 9 interceptions this season were tipped at the line of scrimmage, the kind of unlucky breaks that can sink a quarterback's reputation without telling the full story. Add to that the constant rotation of injured playmakers, and the picture gets clearer. Brock Bowers has been limited since week 1, and the only time he was fully healthy, he went for over 100 yards. Michael Mayer just cleared concussion protocol, giving Geno another legitimate target who can actually win contested catches, because right now his receiving core hasn't stepped up. Dante Thornton, Jacoby Myers, and Trey Tucker have yet to consistently make those big, drive-saving plays. When Geno was in Seattle, he had DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, dependable, dynamic receivers who could bail him out when the pocket collapsed. In Las Vegas, that safety net doesn't exist yet. The difference between an interception and a touchdown in this league often comes down to who's on the other end of the ball. But if Bowers and Mayer stay healthy, the tide could finally turn. Carroll knows this. That's why he's preaching patience and structure instead of panic. He's looking at the long game, building a system that can sustain itself through growing pains. The defense is getting faster. The offense is getting healthier. The chemistry slowly but surely is forming. And though the season's start has been rocky, the message from inside the building is simple. Don't count them out yet. The Raiders have a winnable matchup ahead against the Tennessee Titans, a chance to reset the tone and prove the foundation Carroll is building can actually hold. Win that game and suddenly the season narrative shifts. Confidence grows, the locker room stabilizes, and the team heads into the Chiefs matchup with momentum. Lose, and the questions will come louder than ever. About Geno, about Carroll, and about whether this new era can truly deliver. So what do you think, Raider Nation? Was releasing Germaine Pratt the right call, or a move made too soon? Will Jamon Davis and John Ratigan give this defense the jolt it's been missing? And most importantly, can Geno Smith finally silence the critics and lead this team to the turnaround they've been waiting for? Let's talk about it in the comments below. If you enjoyed the breakdown and want more deep dives into every twist and turn of the Raiders season, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell. Because the story of this team is just getting started, and you won't want to miss what comes next.